Today we have Oscar Mora with Blue Adobe Mortgage. Oscar has lived in Monterey County for over 40 years and has been in the mortgage business for over 20. Oscar's bilingual skills have helped hundreds of families in the Hispanic community attain ownership. He was currently ranked on Scotsman's Guide and Mortgage Executive as one of America's top 1% mortgage loan officers. Kind of an interesting little story. Oscar was part of the first graduating class of Cal State University, Monterey, where he earned a bachelor's degree in a bachelor's degree of science in business. Oscar also has an amazing family, and in full disclosure, Oscar and I were cousins,
Mhm.
and so I have known him for pretty much all of his life, and I mean he's got an amazing story which we're going to get into. He ended up marrying his high school sweetheart Sheila, and they've been together for 20, I think 27 years now.
Yeah, so
And
you have to go on 28. Yeah.
28, okay, I'm point shaving there. So I've got, and one of the greatest things of Oscar's is absolutely his family. Oscar and Sheila, they've got three children. Priscilla played basketball on scholarship in college and is now a teacher at North Monterey County High. Oscar Jr. Just graduated from Cal State East Bay, where he was there on a track scholarship and is now preparing to enter law school. And the youngest Faith is a matador over at Cal State Northridge, also on an athletic scholarship where she is running track and cross country. Oscar, it's great to have you here today with us. But I really seriously want to start off with a story that I think everyone will kind of encapsulate kind of the relationship you and I've had growing up, especially with our moms and stuff.
Yes.
And so Oscar and I, kids being kids, we would fight. We would get into arguments and we would fight and we would be there fist fighting one another. Well, our moms weren't having any of it. And so what they would do is they would tie us up. They would make us hug and they would put a lasso around us and tie us up and just leave us there until we got all our aggression out, just hugging it out.
Yeah.
And it was at the time it was humiliating. It was dumb in a sense, but I mean, really, if you look back at it, it was an amazing message that our parents gave us, which was your family. You take care of each other. You don't fight each other. You really look out for one another, and it is something that I have seen you kind of take this over with your family, with your kids, with our relationship that we have, and really, with the community that both you work with and I do with mine.
Yeah, no, there is. There's something to be said about that, right? There's those values of, you're gonna have some differences, but you work them out and you stick together and you persevere. And then that, yeah, I mean, I remember those days, and it was just like, and sometimes we wouldn't see each other for a couple of days, and then as soon as it was like little roosters, no, Hector, don't do that to me, blah, blah, blah. And then mom, no se van a hacer eso, no, 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 So it's definitely one of the stories I've always highlighted whenever Hector comes up. When you come up, it's like, hey, this is what happened to us, and here we are, 40 something years later, and you've had a great career, and we're working on mine. We're getting there.
Well, Oscar, tell us about for those of you that don't know, tell us about your background, where you grew up, where you went to school, parents and so forth. You've got an absolutely fascinating background, immigrant family, there in the Castroville Salinas area.
Yeah, so no, we for us, I was born in LA, with you, and we were together the first couple of years, and then unfortunately my biological father left, when I was 3 or 4 years old, and my mom met, my stepfather, and next thing you know, we're on a car, and we are driving north, and we were trying to get away from my dad, and it was funny story was that we're in a '65 Mustang car, driving up the grapevine, and I turn to my mom. I go, "Hey, the moon's following us." I'm 4 years old. He's like, "The moon's gonna tell my dad where we're leaving," because we were leaving my dad behind, my biological dad. And we got to San Martin, little town in San Martin, past Gilroy. We moved in with my brother's sister, and it was a challenge at first there because I had cousins from that side that only spoke English, and I didn't speak English, and so there was some communication challenges there. There were some challenges for daycare at that time. So my parents were picking, chilies. They were picking cucumbers. They were picking when we got to San Martin. They were doing a little bit of everything. And my daycare was in the car. There was, I hung out in the car and stuck my head out the window and watched them work. And if I needed something from mom, I crawl under the, they call them surcos, the rows, and get to my mom and, hey, I'm hungry. And one time I got so hungry, we were next to a plum orchard. And I just sat next to the tree and the plums kept falling. So I kept eating them. And you know what happens when you eat too many plums. So that was a rough night. And but that's from there we migrated to Castroville. And Castroville, we moved in and my dad started working in the lettuce and my mom started picking strawberries and working in the strawberry fields. And so I grew up probably since I was second or third grade picking strawberries, all through my freshman year in high school. And so it was something where my mom instilled in us. We'd get it, 3:30, you get out of school at the time, bus stop, mom's there picking me up and taking me back to the fields. And we would work from 3:30 till sunset. And Saturday mornings, there was no such thing as Saturday morning cartoons. It was just like, let's get in there and work. And, like you said, hugging us and when they made us hug and tied us, some hard love, right? And there was also some hard love growing up because there was times that my brothers and I have three brothers, rest in peace, one of them, if we would fight, there was no school the next day. And, it's go to the fields and go work, and if you worked in the strawberry fields, if you know a little bit about that, it's hard on the body. You're bent down, bent over all day. In the mornings, you're sticking your hands in this, cold ice plants, and you're like, your fingers get like this. And so I made sure I didn't want to fight. I'm like, I want to go to school. So I got a whole different love and perspective about school. And but that came from a very humble, poor family. There wasn't a lot of resources there. We worked and we did the best we could. And but they taught us how to work. They taught us how to be hardworking, how to persevere, and be yourself. And for me, that growing up, by the time I got to high school, I was really into sports, but I couldn't do sports. So I couldn't do sports because my mom frowned on it. She felt that if you were going to go do sports, then you were going to become a cholo. You can become, and there's just this misconception about it, right? There was like, right. Hey, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And so then I get to high school, finally was able to, get a different type of job. So as soon as I saw the opportunity to start working as a janitor during summer schools, I took the opportunity. It was much better than working on the fields. By that time, I was already working with crews, like they call them in Spanish cuadrillas, right? Yeah. Small crews where it's all a bunch of men, and I was in there, and it was rough there too. There was some bullying there because I'm not. They didn't consider me fully Mexican, right? And so they call me Pocho, right? And so there were some harsh lessons there, and there's some pretty good lessons. I'd have some gentleman come up to me. He's like, "Hey, Pocho, ¿qué haces aquí? What are you doing here?" He's like, "Go to school. Like you don't belong here. Get out of here." And so there was, and some of them I still see them around town. And one of them the other day he saw me. He's, "Oh my God," I knew you weren't going to stick there, and and it was good. And, Miguel, his name's Miguel, and that was a cool little moment there. That happened a couple months ago. But started working during summer school, and started getting some other jobs. Started affording some name brand stuff. Finally bought myself at the time some Reeboks. So that was cool. And
you mean you put away the Boomas that our parents would get us from TJ? Oh, or it wasn't Nike, it was something like Nikki or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then Payless Shoe Source was big back then, so there was a Pro Wings, and Pro Wings were always kind of a spin of whatever the trend was. I remember the Michael Jordan shoe that came out. I got some Pro Wings, but mine were a little different, but they were red with black and white, and the kids would bully me on that sense. And so I get to high school, and when I got to high school, ran in PE, ran a mile like in almost 5-minute flat, and all of a sudden I caught the attention of a couple people there at the PE, the teachers. So they go talk to the cross country coach. They talked to the cross country coach, and he approaches me, hey Mora, you wanna do we have a team and blah blah blah. I go, no, I can't do that. I gotta work. I can't do sports. And he didn't speak, Coach White, he didn't speak Spanish, so he found Coach Serrano. Coach Serrano ended up going to talk to my mom. He went and
Yeah.
talked to my mom, and so the whole movie, there's a movie, that Kevin Costner movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'm trying to
With
think of.
what's it, Farland?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That exactly. That brought so much memories when we saw that movie, because that's literally what happened. He went and talked to my mom. My mom said no. He, Senora, su hijo, he can do it. I'll take care of him. This is 1989. Okay, this is
Yeah,
1989 when this happened, and I think finally she agreed. By my sophomore year, she agreed to let me, but he was responsible of taking me to practice or right after school, bringing me straight home and picking me up and providing, there's not much for running, just a couple singlets and some shoes, and providing whatever it is that I needed
yeah,
for the sport. Well, October 17, 1989, I don't know if you remember what happened that day. It was the big, or October 19th, the big earthquake up here.
yeah.
And and I had just gotten home from practice. I'm walking in the door. The house is all shaking. All of a sudden, my mom's calling the phone and she's trying to look for me. And apparently, that was a sign of God that I shouldn't be doing sports. So, I was like, what does this have to do with me? Eso esta seña que no debes de andar afuera de la casa. This is a
Yes.
sign that you shouldn't be out of the house. And I'm like, okay, but that's, and she started allowing me to do sports. And then I just grew so far. I loved sports all
Right.
along. And from there, graduated and, from North Monterey County, which is kind of cool. That's where my kids start teaching. Oscar subbing there. Priscilla's a teacher there. So got really involved there, and went to Hartnell College. Had a couple. I got admitted into a couple schools, but and one of them was trying to head back over there, back with you.
Yeah,
I visited Cal State LA a couple times with you, where you were doing Sigma Nu, and I have some very fond memories of all those times that I visited, and that was the goal. Really, the goal was to head back to LA. I've
yeah,
always loved LA, and the goal was to head back to LA. But there came a point there when I was like, yeah, we can't afford it. My mom's like, okay, and so forth. And not knowing the resources that are out there now. If I knew the resources that I know now, back then, there was opportunity, right? I mean, we had even talked with your mom about potentially me heading over there and going to
Well,
school.
well, one of the things that I find interesting, especially in this, when you talk about resources, is and growing up, because my obviously, just like yours, my parents were immigrants too, and well, your family was up north. That other side of the family for me was really down in Los Angeles. We still worked in the produce business, a lot different. My dad worked in downtown where they import all the fruit, and the thing was, I find it interesting when I talk to friends because like you, I was born in Los Angeles, and when I tell them, English is a second language, they're like, "What are you talking about? You were born here." I'm like, "Yeah, but for those 5 or 6 years, of your youth, your parents don't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
So the only language you know and learn is Spanish. And the other thing too, it's not like we're listening really to English language music because we're listening to everything our parents are playing,
Yeah.
which is all Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
You're watching TV and that's all in Spanish. And so, your language skills that you pick up as a kid is all Spanish. And so you may be born here, but you're still English as a second language growing up.
Yeah, no, it's so true, because I mean, I didn't really learn how to read English till probably fourth or fifth grade. There's a couple pretty bad experiences there. I was since we jumped a couple schools, we went to San Martin, then we went to Castroville, and then within Castroville, we moved a couple like different zones for different schools. So
Yeah.
I went to a Prunedale school from first through third, and then they had me kind of dialed in already with some programs where I was taking ESL, so things in Spanish, and slowly transitioned me to English.
Yeah.
We moved my fourth grade year and went to Echo Valley School, and Echo Valley kind of took me off of ESL and just threw me in through the core English classes
Yeah.
without me knowing yet how to read English. And one of the first couple of days, I still remember the book. I think I have it downstairs. Is I saved it. It was just this big American history book. Oh, I'm reading, and the teacher calls on me and says, Oscar, hey, can you read the next paragraph? And I'm like stuttering and not knowing, what to do and what to say. And there's some bullying behind that, right? There's a little bit of making
Yeah.
fun of me, and used it as motivation. And by the time we graduated from grade school, got a lot of accolades, for being the migrant student of the year and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
Well, it's funny you say that. I was talking to Amy and fiance, and as I've told other friends too, I said, right now in my business, a lot of what I do is I write speeches for people. I write them for politicians. I write them for CEOs. I read their stuff. I make edits to it, and I said, and just like your story, there was, for me, it was, I think, I want to say third or fourth grade too, where I had to read a passage and I couldn't. I really couldn't. I stumbled. It was embarrassing. And I remember Miss Bonhottie in Chandler Elementary School in Sherman Oaks. I was one of those kids that got bussed out. I went to my elementary school, got in a bus, and then traveled another 40, 50 minutes to another school to go to school there. It was kind of the integration with busing. And she's just like, look, I know you're struggling. Just pick up whatever you can, whether it's comic books, whether a newspaper, it doesn't matter. Just pick up whatever you can and just try. And and that's kind of what I did. I just tried and tried. And later on, I mean, obviously I got this. I got this to the point where I didn't want to be dumb anymore, because that's just the way I felt. I didn't, I
Yeah.
wanted to go out and do something, and I didn't want that feeling of being dumb. And I think this discussion that we're having it serves great for a lot of kids who like realize there is no clear path on which way you go or how you end up. It's it's something you mentioned earlier. It really is a hard work. It's the effort you put into it, and it's taking those difficult times that you have in life and doing something with it. You know,
Persevere, to
yeah,
persevere, because I mean, there was a good window there, right? There was a good window there from fourth grade to sixth grade where I got lost. I got
yeah,
lost in the sense of exactly what you're talking about. Like, I can't do this. Am I cut out? There's these questions that come, and they come even as adults, right? When we
yeah,
change careers or we change, jobs. I just recently came to Blue Adobe, and there's that like, am I fit for this new chapter in my life, right? And there's this doubts, and that happened to me at an early age between fourth and sixth grade, where I'm like, okay, am I gonna hang out with the bad kids because it seems like that's where I belong, or am I gonna kind of hang out over here? And we're still dealing with some transition. That area that we were in, most of the Mexican kids that were at Echo Valley were bused off from one street of Castroville. Brundale is about
yeah,
3 or 4 miles away, and and it was interesting because then I think when it really hit me was when I got to seventh grade. In seventh grade, would classify you as 7-1, 7-2, and 7-3. And 7-1 was like the smartest kids, honor roll, every college courses, getting ready. 7-2 is kind of your middle of the pack, and 7-3 was, the kids that aren't paying attention. There's some challenging things going on at home. So when I started seventh grade year and I'm at 7-3, I'm like, oh, what's going on? I'm looking around and I'm like, this isn't for me, and kind of picked it up a little bit. And I said, okay. And then good thing was that they would promote you, once you started seeing that you picked it up.
right,
Next thing you know, started at 7-3. By the end of the year, I was at 7-1.
yeah.
There's only two Mexican kids in that class, Joe Perez, myself, and that was it, And then by eighth grade, another one of my good friends, Ozzy Gomez, joined us in eighth grade, and we were at 8-1. So, but there could have gone the other way. It
Yeah.
could have definitely gone the other way.
Well, Oscar, how did you get? We talked about all the different jobs you got. You got different jobs you got before you got in the mortgage business. But I mean, how did you get into the mortgage business? I mean, um, what got what's your interest, or what was your first stint at kind of looking at this business, saying, "Yeah, I could do this."
No, well, I mean, it called my attention at an early age, and you recall you were a realtor there for a little bit when we were young, and that kind of steered some interest in me seeing what you were doing with it. And then at that point, when I graduated from high school, wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Sheila and I had just met, at the end of high school. We had a baby on the way, Priscilla, and we got married at 19 years old. And then everybody just said, okay, you know, this is it for Oscar. That's all she wrote, right? Is Oscar cannot continue to go to school. He's a dad now. So I'm working, at the time I started working at a grocery store here locally called Nob Hill. And so I was working 40 hours and going to school full time. And that's how I got through college. And then by the time I graduated from CSUMB, I was, had two kids, at Oscar and Priscilla. And that whole time there's some experiences there where helping people with credit, helping people fulfill that American dream was always there. We had an instance one time because I used to translate a lot for my parents growing up, and I remember my parents got an advertisement, one of those gimmicks that they win a contest, right? And I'm I think at the time I must have been like 7 or 8 years old, and I read it, and all I saw is you win a car or you win a TV, guaranteed, right? It's this contest gimmick. And I didn't know how to read it well enough to translate it. All I told my parents, hey, te vas a ganar una casa o un carro. You're going to win something. Next, we're driving all the way to Yosemite from Castroville. We drove all the way to Yosemite, and all it was some contest that if you entered and applied for a credit card, which we have no idea at that age what credit is. My parents weren't, my mom's a fourth grade education. My dad had maybe seventh or eighth grade education. And we show up and drove all the way. That feeling that day when they told us you didn't win nothing, your credit didn't pass, and we got rejected for credit, that had some scars, right? It caused some stuff. So throughout that time, for me, I graduated from college, was working Nob Hill. Then I went to go do sales for a bread company, and it had split days. There was days where you were off on Wednesday and you were off on Sunday. And I started missing, my kids were starting to get into sports. So there was a couple of times there where I couldn't make it or I couldn't be involved. And that's when I said, okay, this isn't for me, and ran into a good friend of mine, Richard, and he put me into doing loans. And then everything else came back to me like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to get into loans. This was in 2000, year 2000, 2001. And for me, it's something that I love it. I live it, I breathe it, and it's something that I really grew fond of. And for me, I think I always share this other story I share is I think I was meant to do, be in the mortgage business or be into real estate in a way. I was 10 years old, I think, and I share this story because it brings fond memories, and it also, back to the values that our parents instilled in us, right? And we're 10 years old, and this is where that fourth grade, when we made that move to this new house, we started renting a house in Castroville. I still remember them, Robert Horn and Donna Horn. I still vividly remember the landlords, and they made a deal with my mom. They said, okay, you rent the house and we'll sell the house to you. And they gave her a price. They gave her a certain price, but we needed to come up with the down payment. And that down payment at the time was about $3,500, almost $4,000. And so my mom put that carrot out there. Hey guys, this house is going to be for us, but we have to work. And my brothers and I worked all summer in the strawberry fields, and then nobody took a penny. We were putting into the pot for this down payment. But it took us a little longer than I think Robert and Donna anticipated. So when we finally went to them and say, hey, we have the money, here's our down payment, they were going to do what's called the seller carryback. I think the price at the time was $52,000 for that house. And wish we had those prices now, right? $52,000. And we show up to their house, and every so often I'll finance a house. I'm down that street. It's Navajo Drive here in Salinas. And it always, I share the story, whoever's buying a house. Oh yeah, this is what happened to me. And we go and knock at the door, and they come out, and and I'm translating. My mom says we have the money to do the deal. And then Robert says, hey, but can you tell your mom that obviously the house appreciated, so the price isn't 52 no more. It ended up going to 56. I think it was like 52 to 56,000. And so I turn around, mama, blah, 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 blah. My mom, being the Mexican woman that she is, she went on a rampage. Que no, yo no estoy esas, a mí no me van a ver la cara. They're not gonna do that to me, right? Yo sé lo que me dijo, yo sé, and starts telling me. And I turn around and looked at Robert and I said, my mom say okay. I go, my mom say okay. And then Robert's like, Oscar, I don't think that's what she said. I go, no, she said okay. She said okay. And so that's how I ended up working my first transaction. We ended up sealing, we still worked it out. We got the house is still in the family. And so for
Yeah.
me, getting when I got into mortgages, that was always resonated, and helping people fix credit. That was another thing, right? With that whole credit experience, and I've dedicated my life to helping a lot of families improve. I've got clients that we've started 3 or 4 years ago, and the credit was bad, to getting them to that point where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you're a homeowner. I get to make that call today, twice today. So it's a call that doesn't go. There sometimes a couple years ago it started getting a little bit like, since business was so busy, but we kind of become immune to it. But it's such an awesome call to make, and that's probably what I love the most. And that's how I got into the mortgage business. I mean, to me, my first college class that I took right after high school was real estate principles,
Yeah.
and I signed up for it. So it was in there. I wanted to do that. I wanted to study, and but I didn't have a car, and so from Castroville to Salinas, and so I ended up getting an incomplete. So if you see my transcripts, it says real estate principles incomplete because I couldn't finish the class.
Yeah. Now, is I know you talked about helping out people with the credit, helping them get it. What is it? Is that what you enjoy most about working in this field, or what if you could kind of if you were going to explain it to someone who's maybe looking, at joining this field? Well, I mean, what do you enjoy the most of it?
The whole process. I mean, the when a client comes in, I had a family yesterday. They come in and their daughter was like, she's a teenager, and she's sitting in the meeting and she's translating. She's doing the same thing that I was doing back in 1984. So that to me just hits home, gives me goosebumps, because that happened to me just yesterday. The
Yeah.
young gal's translating, and she was, what, not translating, but trying to help them understand the process better from her point of view, because
Yeah.
I can speak Spanish, and so, but seeing them come in with like, is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? Is there a possibility of us becoming homeowners or not? And then seeing that through step by step, here's what you need to do. Here's where, okay, credit's good. We go to the next step. Or credit's not good. We come to a stop. Let's fix that. Okay, here's what it's going to, and walking them through that process to making those calls that I'm going to make today. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's awesome. To me, it's the American dream. We've always said
Yeah.
it. Mine being homeownership is the American dream, and I play a small little part in that, and really focusing on translating and bringing that into the Hispanic community here in Salinas. Salinas is about 70% Hispanic, and that's I think what I was meant to do was help people finance and buy homes. Mhm.
What and how do you end up staying up to date with all the latest trends and changes that are happening in the mortgage industry?
And then that's the other beauty of it, right? That's the other beauty of the business. It's fluent. It's
Yeah.
ever changing. I mean, when I started in 2000, 2001, the way that we processed a loan, the way that we did a loan there was completely different than we're doing it now. So it's not like, okay, I went to college and I studied for this and now I know, and it just becomes, because every situation is so much different. We have people that are self-employed,
Right.
hourly wages, base salary. Some, like here in Salinas, work from March to November, and then they're off and get unemployment, seasonal
Yeah.
work here. So there's so much. And to answer your question, I mean, it's to stay up to date is reading the guidelines, reading every time a program. Right now, we've got a new program that recently came out that there's a major buzz about. It's called CalHAFA Shared Appreciation. It's a new program. So, well, guess
Yeah.
what? Got to go dive into it and learn it. I feel really comfortable aware the program, and I know the program now. I understand it. And then all of a sudden, we get a bulletin yesterday from CalHAFA. We're pausing the loan because the loan running out of funds. So
Yeah.
there goes that. But we learn, and that's happened throughout our career and staying up to date. I mean, I there's a couple people subscriptions that I follow. Watching the market today. The jobs report comes out, so we start educating ourselves on the economy. The BLS report that came out today.
Yep.
We were hoping it was going to be a little better for mortgages, and it wasn't. We'll see what we'll read into it. CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, comes out next week, and the PCE comes out a little later after that. So there's a lot of things that it's hard to keep up. But it is hard to keep up. I can tell you
Yeah.
that.
Now, what are talked about all great things within the business itself that you enjoy so much, but what are some of the biggest challenges you have faced in this field, and how did you overcome them or deal with them?
A lot of getting the client to trust you, right? Having consumers trust you, especially after what happened in the meltdown in 2008.
Yeah.
So, and so for us, I had to reinvent myself because again, we did business a certain way from 2000 to 2008, and then all of a sudden the market crashed, and then people came back when they started purchasing homes again in 2010. There was a very lack of trust, lack of trust in getting them because they're like, okay, Hector, you're my loan officer. Okay, what are you up to? What are you going to do to me? What? And then they're sizing you up and they're reading you. And that was a major thing. And you can't blame them. There's so many bad things that happen, so many bad experiences. And so for me, it was just trying to let them know that I was there with them and that I was going to walk this process with them all along the way, and
Yeah.
understanding that what I stood for was honesty, transparency, and that I was going to respect their time, and I was going to respect their this process, for them. And that was a big obstacle. Now the obstacles is sometimes, we've got a lot of we're shifting this business into more of a commodity, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, and sometimes it's all about rate when it
Yeah.
really isn't all about rate, And then there's a little bit of a thing there that we're dealing with. Mhm.
Now, for someone, you've got a lot of people graduating from school coming up, and they're kind of trying to figure out what they want to do, whether it's high school or college itself. Are there any tips or advice that you would share for someone who's interested, in maybe pursuing a career in this business?
I mean, it's having your college education completely puts you to be a much more polished loan officer, right? But some of the
Right.
stuff that we learn here, you can't learn in college. It's all hands on. So my biggest tip is, if you like this industry, go intern with a local mortgage company or a local real estate company. There's a lot of opportunities there where you can shadow us and see if this is for you, because it's a sales business, it's a commission business, and it's not your typical, here's your base salary to start off, you're going to make 60,000. No, here it's like, if you can make the calls and if you close, you get paid. If you don't close, you don't get paid. But there's a lot of benefit if you're willing to put in the work. And
Yeah.
that's the big, to me, the biggest tip here is come in. There's potential to have a great career, a great rewarding career, financially, emotionally, but it's going to take some hard work, and you're gonna. And for some people, I mean, there's a comfort level. I had major call reluctance when I started this business, and that was something that I had to overcome,
Yeah.
and pick up the phone and say, hey, hi Hector, this is Oscar Mora with Blue Adobe Mortgage. So and so gave me your number, and why you're interested in pre-approved? No. so,
Yeah.
so getting used to those rejections, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that's sales is sometimes all about rejection.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I admire about you the most is, you've been doing this business for more than 20 years. You've you are successful in what you do. I find it interesting. And you talked about the market, the challenges of 2010, 2008, 2009. But everyone always seems to jump in when the market is hot, you know. But as we know, the market gets hot, then there's a crash and burn, and the market ends up collapsing. But somehow, through all these changes, you've been able to kind of weather the storms. I How have you done this? I guess the big thing a lot of people would love to know is, how have you done this, and what's your secret? I mean, how have you weathered all these crazy market storms where people are jumping in, jumping out, but the market itself is just gone bananas in some of these years.
And there's something to be said about that. We're going through one right now, right? We're
Yeah,
going through a very interesting market right now, post pandemic, where rates went from being 2 to 3% up to 7%. So we're starting to see a lot of people get out of the business because it's a tough market right now. It's a really tough market. Inventory is low. There's a lot of challenges to affordability. That's another problem that we're having right now. And to answer your question, is perseverance, perseverance. I'm a man of faith, and I continue to stick with my faith, and I continue to do the basics. Sometimes, getting belly to belly with somebody and doing business, right? And saying, hey, let's go out to lunch. Let's make this call. Let's go deeper with our relationships. And I think throughout the years, I'm probably the one thing that I'm most proud of is the impact I've had with my relationships throughout the years with my
Yeah.
clients. And my clients have become the number one referral partners for me. And that has gone, I can't tell you enough how much that means to me. And then yesterday was one of those moments where, I'm going to call them today and say, hey, congratulations, you're a homeowner. But when they were signing, they said, hey, I didn't think I told you, but we're related to so-and-so, and we're related to so-and-so, and we're related to so-and-so. And when I asked them, who should I use for a lender, without them knowing, they say, go talk to Oscar. And then go talk to Oscar, go talk. So I think the relationships that I built throughout the years is the reason I've been able to persevere. But if I was out there not doing the right thing, that, especially in a town, this is not Los Angeles, this is not Sacramento, we're in rural Salinas, the Salinas Valley, and there's a lot of interconnection, families, and I think my reputation in doing the right thing little by little by little is what helped me persevere all these markets. And I think that there's a testament to that. I'm proud of it, and I protect my reputation like gold, because that's really what got me through it. But I make sure that when I'm working with you, Hector, and I'm saying, hey, I'm keeping you posted, you can get a hold of me. I tell them, hey, we're tied to the hip here for the next 21 days, 30 days. And you've experienced a little bit of it, how the
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
works.
I think it was 14 days, 14,
Yeah,
15 days.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
and then, and we embrace technology now. Our team's embracing the technology that goes with it and sending videos. Look at what we're doing right now. You're in Sacramento and I'm in Salinas, and we're communicating, right? So that's another thing that's helped us persevere is engage, using all the resources, technology, face to face when it needs to be face to
Right.
face, sitting down and translating into Spanish and breaking it down to layman's terms where the person understands in Spanish what you're signing. And that's sometimes, something to be said. I'm very few times have I missed a signing with one of my clients. When my
Yeah.
client goes and sign their closing docs, I can probably count with, and it's been like I had to attend a funeral or something like that where I haven't been able to be present
Yeah.
and attend. And then we stay in touch, and but our database, our referral partners, has always been the number one thing.
Now, what do and you talked about technology, you talked about, you know, um, being able to kind of connect, like we are right now, but what do you see as the kind of the future of this industry? If you look not just what's happening right now with the rates, but if you I think you look at 5, 10, 20 years down the line, how do you see this industry changing?
It's going through a change right now. Back to the commodity, right? There's a lot of, you got the online lending, the rocket mortgage, and then all this, and it's all about interest rate. And I think that's probably the biggest misconception too, right? It's not always about rate. It's about getting the service that you deserve, because we're all in so unique situations, right? You have a self-employed borrower that doesn't have the income, but he has a great business. You have, we're starting to see an uptick in I-10 borrowers. We're starting to see, some challenges for first-time home buyers with affordability. And so, but the future for me in the mortgage industry is we're starting technology. I mean, we're going to get to the point where now you don't even have to walk into my office to be able to sign in the notary. It's calling it e-close. That's a new thing that we're coming up with, and there's some good about it, and there's potentially some bad about it, because then there's sometimes we miss. Hold on a minute, sorry, that's work. Trying to call, but yeah, that for me, the future of the mortgage industry
Right.
is how can we get more affordable housing? How can we get more inventory into, because we have a challenge. There's a major challenge
Right.
here. I mean, I just saw the news this morning, and they closed a local gym, and they're going to turn it into 50 apartment units. And
Yeah.
there's a little bit of an uprise in the community because of that. And the gym's probably less than a mile away from here. And that for me, though, in the mortgage industry is how do we fix affordability, but the inventory issue that we're having.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, household sizes, believe it or not, grew, and
Yeah.
they're growing. The millennials are coming in, the Gen Zs are coming in. There's some big generations, and your daughter, my
Yeah.
son. What are we going to do to help them be able to afford a home?
Yeah. It's good. Yeah. It's the way home prices are. I mean, and everywhere. I mean, it's I look at the because I've got 13-year-old and 6-year-old. It's like, man, what's the market going to look like? What are things? I mean, what's the cost of a car going to look like, or anything else? When they're ready for it, and so it's
Yeah,
just it's scary as a parent. Um, and at the same time, it's like best thing we can do is just try to lead them kind of on that right path so that they can they can be successful on their own. But I mean, it's difficult to see how that success really brews in when things are just getting so expensive.
it is. It is, and it's a tough, situation. And what's the fix? We'll see. We're going to see. Hopefully, we can all, as a community, figure out a way to get this done. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge. The inventory is a challenge. The affordability, and with interest rates and the Federal Reserve right now, there's a lot of uncertainty as far as what's going on in the market. And so I wish I had a better answer to tell you what my
Yeah.
crystal ball says about the future. But I mean, there's definitely technology. I mean, I had a situation the other day where I met them the day of the signing. I'd never seen them in person, so I could have been at the grocery store standing behind them and not knowing that they were my clients, right?
Yeah.
And but technology, being able to do things now through video, the way that we're doing it. I got a gentleman I got off the phone right before we jumped on in Bakersfield, so we're going to get on a Zoom call. We're going to be doing a loan in Bakersfield. We do some in Los Angeles. We do some here and there, and and that's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go a little bit off topic, but we kind of did this in the beginning. Is you've got an amazing family, amazing bio, amazing life, and you've got three kids who all went to school on an athletic scholarship. And look, I realize all kids are different, including those in the same household. I mean, how did you and Sheila keep that mental drive for your kids to be able to go get into college on an academics on athletic scholarships?
I used this word before, and I don't know, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but perseverance. Telling the kids to persevere. I mean, we have my kids have been each single one of them. I have three, so I have Priscilla, Junior, and Faith. All three of them have a pretty cool story when it comes to sports, because one of the reasons I love sports, there's a lot of correlation with life,
Yeah.
right? There's gonna be some days you're gonna win. There's gonna be some days you're gonna lose. There's gonna be some days that you're like, I don't want to do this, and then there's that glory of like, I love this. This is awesome, right? And all three of my kids have had different challenges in that. I mean, we're talking all three of my kids have gotten, probably Faith probably would be the exception to this because she kind of already knew where she wanted to go and steer. And but my kids were cut from teams.
Yeah.
From Oscar was cut from a football team. Priscilla was cut from a volleyball team. And there was those moments there that there was some teaching going on, right? Whether I knew it as kids don't come with a manual. So you're at 19 years old, you're also learning. And
Yeah.
Priscilla's like, well, I was a guinea pig, and that's why by the time you got to Faith, things were a little bit easier. You kind of knew where to go. And Oscar's like, well, I'm the boy, I'm the middle child, and I'm the only boy, so you're a little tougher with me and I mean, but there was some teaching there, right? Priscilla got cut from her 7th grade volleyball team,
Yeah.
and we were okay with that. We were like, okay, we understand. You don't know the sport. You haven't really played the sport. Let's dig in. Let's go get you ready. And that's what we did. We said, okay, there's still some tape marks on the garage where I was like, run up and jump and hit it. And jump. Now she can just stand and touch the thing, right? And
Yeah.
then and I did the same thing with Oscar. Well, you do it. Help your sister. Let's support her. She's gonna get there. Took her to volleyball camps. Took her to things that we could afford and invest in her during that
Yeah.
time for her to come and take on the challenge. Come 8th grade year, she gets cut again. And it's
Yeah.
like, and she's like, there's some politics, like any sports, things like that. By her sophomore year, she's on the varsity team for
Yeah.
volleyball. So, and it's perseverance. Oscar, the same thing. Oscar was cut from a couple football teams, and he's like, I don't know. Till the third year, he finally made it, and then he realized, okay, this is not for me. This is not the sport for me, and this is not really what I want to do. He tried a couple. He tried baseball, and finally, and it was funny because I didn't really instill in them to run track, even though that was kind of my sport. They
Right.
kind of knew a little bit about it, and then Oscar started running in sixth, seventh grade, and it just became like, hey, I like this, Dad. I really like this, and that's how I was. I mean, so for me, that the word perseverance,
Right.
dedication is key. Because I mean, we had moments even with Priscilla her senior year where we were told that she should not pursue playing college basketball. And there was a
And she
moment there.
did. And
Huh?
she did. Because I
And she
remember,
did.
yeah, I remember Bella and I going to see her a couple of times playing in college. It was
Yeah,
great.
no, she ended up going up to Washington, had a tore her a little bit of rential, and all of a sudden we had to take a step back and say, okay, what's going to happen here? And there were so many moments, like in life, where you can say, okay, I don't want to do this no more. I'm going to give up. I'm not. This is not for me. And she persevered. There's a lot to be said with Priscilla's story because we went to San Francisco State, and I'm not trying to put them on blast like the kids say, right? But we had a coach there, and the coach says, she's 5'9", Mexican girl from Salinas that's not going to do. She can't play basketball. Well, we came back 4 years later, and she played her last collegiate basketball game on that court. So there's something to be said about that.
Well, I got an opportunity to interview Joe, who is a phenomenal softball coach. He played in traveled nationally in the men's softball fast pitch division.
Mhm.
And I asked him a question. Is like, what advice would you give parents of young kids who are in sports? And his advice was parents just kind of need to learn to relax. They just need to be patient. Let the kids kind of go through some of their stuff, and especially when the game is going on. What advice would you give parents who have young kids in sports now, having seen all three of your kids go through this?
As a parent, I think for me, it's enjoy it.
Yeah.
Sit back and enjoy it because it goes by really quick and appreciate it, right? Appreciate those moments. That busy schedule, that like Saturday morning, I got to run over here because I got to be with this one, and then I got to run over here and be with this one. Enjoy it, embrace it, and I think that's the number one thing because I think for me, we were so dedicated, so pinpointed at like we're going to help you succeed. Do you want to succeed? Yes, I want to succeed. So there's some accountability, there's some responsibility to that, and we had like, and then it's something that as parents, now I think with my granddaughter Mila, I think we're going to take a different approach, right? There's going to be
Yeah.
some accountability, but there's going to be a lot more love because there was some tough love. And that's what was taught to us. I mean, we started this conversation where they hugged you. So we didn't, so there was some stuff like Priscilla, had a game one, 30 something points, 20 something rebounds. And I'm like, well, if you would have made that free throw, we would have won the game. It's like, what else you want me to do? Right? What else you want me to do, Dad? Right? And so there's some stuff with Faith. I've had some instances. What's going on with you? I mean, Faith had an injury in high school, and there's another story there. She's had different injuries throughout. I
Yeah.
mean, apophysitis, stress fractures in high school, where she could have easily just said, "This isn't for me," and here she is,
Yeah.
4 or 5 years later, running for CISA. And so, but I think number one, enjoy it, embrace it, appreciate it, and yes, take a step back. I would piggyback on that coach for the softball and take a step back and and I was notorious for it as a younger parent of coaching from the sidelines, right? I mean, coaching
Yeah.
from, I mean, it got it down to I had a whistle, hey, and they knew it. And even to this day, sometimes I'll do the whistle and they're like, huh, what? And that was a bad thing. That's not what to do. And
Yeah.
met some coaches along the path that helped me be a better parent from the
Yeah.
stands.
Now, which one of this of your kids should I we interview to give us the story of Oscar, the dad, and the coach, and what do you think they'd say?
I think you can get three different stories because, like you said, there are three different kids. Even though they're in the same household, we had to learn how to motivate each of them in a different way. With Priscilla, it was a little bit harder. So if you want to see the hard coach or the hard dad, you're probably going to talk to Priscilla. With Junior, I think Oscar Junior, you're going to hear the stubborn. Oh well, he's stubborn and I'm stubborn, so we butted heads, and he's my boy, and there was some stuff there. There's a situation one time where he's in the back of the pack and he just didn't feel like running. The day had started bad. He had missed the bus, and we ended up driving to Hollister. He gets in the race and just decides I'm just going to cruise today, right? And so he's thinking, I'm like, hey man, what are you doing back here? Like, let's go, like to the front. And I'm driving back home, and I'm like, hey, you get satisfaction seeing your name so low on the standings. And then I go, I would be embarrassed if they had my name. He said, well, technically that's your name because his name's Mora. and the you know, and the thing is technically, like what? And my wife starts kind of laughing. And the thing is, that particular race, when I told him, Oscar, get to the front of the pack, you know what he did? He looked at me and slowed down even more. Okay. Where Priscilla, if I'd said that to her, she'd be like, okay, this is my challenge. I'm gonna go for it. And with Faith, I think with Faith's story, and if you were interviewed her, she would say more, my dad, I'm the one that made my dad soft, right? I'm the one that made my dad. And so with her, there's been more of a balance, and it's been good. And her injuries have been always a challenge for her, but we were able to coach her, and we got all three kids through their phases, but with kind of three different approaches. And I'm as a grandparent, I'm pretty excited. I'm going to be able to merge them and be a little bit more polished as a grandfather.
Yeah, yes.
But I think that's the story. I think Priscilla says my dad was hard. I think Junior says, oh, my dad's stubborn and sometimes doesn't understand, and Faith's going, oh, he's okay. I'm the one that made him soft,
But it's funny because the different you learn through the different kids and so forth, but that sports you talk about, the perseverance, the grit, the don't give up and stuff. And in listening to this entire conversation, I get that sense, especially as you're helping out your clients, as you're working with them. I mean, I haven't. It's rare that I hear people saying, "I'm willing to stick with a client for 2 years to help them through their credit. I'm willing to kind of walk them through this entire process so they can feel comfortable." And even if it doesn't come into something, then it doesn't. But you're still willing to take all those steps to try to make them comfortable and to try to kind of get them through that process.
Yeah, and then I had this experience, and I shared it with the rest of the staff the other day in the company. 20, I think they told me 2017. I didn't even recall the date, and I had a young couple, and and it was just Jose and Mariana. They came to me in 2017, and they shared their story, and I recall now the conversation. Jose had a I-10. If an I-10 means you don't have a valid social, so you're not here, working with the legal social or legal visa. And they were in a situation where once he said that, everybody turned their backs and said,
Right.
forget it. Like they didn't give him the time or day or anything. And we ended up staying, one during the weekday, we stayed pretty late. Sometimes we'll stay 6:30, sometimes depending on the situation, and gave them an hour of our time and said, here's what you need to do once you get, your legal status there in the process. And so that happened in 2017. They called me last month, and I still hadn't connected the dots. I didn't remember that we had done that. And they're all, hi, this is so-and-so. He's, well, we found you on Facebook. We didn't realize you had moved. He's, oh, but we found you, and here's, and we want to set up an appointment. Oh, sure. Not knowing the 2017 meeting. And when they showed up, he told me the story. He goes, hey, we needed to work with you. We had to work with you. You stayed in touch for the most part the first couple of years, and we know that business in 2020, 21 was just hectic. He goes, but you were the only one 5 years ago, 6 years ago that took the time to sit with us and explain us, and you didn't judge us for anything else. And so here we're here. So here we are 6 years later. He's making a nice living now. She's making a nice living. We got them pre-approved for like, a nice brand new house in Soledad, California, and they're in the process of becoming homeowners here by June. Because
That's
it's a
great.
new development and things like that. And there's in-house lenders and there's people that are there that, hey, we're going to credit you this, we're going to credit you that. And there's something to be said for the client to say, no, I don't care what credit you're giving me.
Yeah.
I want to work with Oscar and Blue Adobe, and they're going to be closing with us, and then that's a 6-year story.
Well, it's a beautiful story, and Oscar, I know we're going to end it here. I know you've got a busy schedule, but before I let you go, we ask this of everyone that kind of comes on. Please, tell us what 2 books or movies or a mixture of both would you recommend to the audience and why?
For me, there's two. I have a hard time with that to narrow it down because there's a lot of great books that I've been reading. That's something that I've started here. Probably the last 5 or 6 years, my self development has really grown. I think and my kids are saying, "Well, that's because you're getting old." That's what old people do. They read books. They don't have nothing else to do, right? And there's something to be said because I'm not busy on Saturdays or on the weekends as much as I used to be. But one of them is the Four Agreements, from by Don Miguel Ruiz. The Four Agreements to me is it's don't make assumptions, don't take things personal, be impeccable with your word, and do the very best that you can. Those Four Agreements to me is huge. The Secret, there's the book The Secret and the movie that brings home to me a lot of memories. My dad, Pifas, he passed away a couple years ago, 2008, and he ended up buying me this book a month before he passed away. And this was 2008, the market crash, and so I took it as a divine intervention sign that he knew that I was going to need that book and understand affirmations, understand mindset. And that's the other book. The last book, I think I'm going to give you 3, is a mindset. Mindset is an awesome book talking to about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. That I think has been huge. And I think that's one of the ones that if I go back and think about how I parent or how I do my business, is always staying in that growth mindset and not going into that fixed mindset and saying, oh, well, I'm not supposed to do this, or, I can't do this, or telling, so that the mindset book, Four Agreements. And I think those are the 2 books I would say.
And Oscar, if people want to get a hold of you, I know we've got your email there in your description there in underneath your name and so forth. Is there a website people can visit, or how do people get a hold of you or so forth?
Yeah, no, definitely. We can, you'll see our website, www.blueadobemortgage.com. You got my email here. You can follow us on Instagram at the Mora team. You can follow us on Facebook, Oscar Mora, LinkedIn, Oscar Mora. So there's a lot of, and I think that's another thing, social media has become pretty
Yeah.
cool thing to connect with people. And I think the mortgage industry has definitely embraced social media and getting the word out there. And I think that's pretty cool.
Well, that's perfect. What I'll make sure to include in the description, not just for the podcast, but also for the video, your the website and the contact information. And so, Oscar, thank you once again for taking the time from your busy schedule to be here with us.
No, thank
It
you.
was a lot of fun. So,
No, thank you. It brought back some memories of fond memories of you and me and our family and some of the stuff that we grew up. And very proud to call myself your cousin and your friend. And I have nothing but love for you. So I love you, Hector, and thank you for having me on here. All
of course, thanks, Oscar. Love you too.
right.
Take care.
Bye.